So we're going to go on with chapter 4. Anyway, this thing is recorded. So chapter 4, we could say, is the heart of the chemistry. Okay, because chapter 4 is all about chemical reactions. So if we're going to look at the discussion that we have all throughout the semester, is chemistry is the science of matter, and all the one that we look here are the changes that it happens. So if the changes is a chemical change, so that means there's a chemical reactions that happen. Now, some of the chemical reactions we could say are drastic, some are not too obvious. Okay, drastic chemical reactions that we have, the explosion that we have in Lebanon, Beirut. Okay, so that's a drastic chemical reaction. It is a destructive forces. The forest fire that we have this time in the West Coast, that's also another drastic chemical reaction. Okay. Now, for the one that is not so obvious, these are the chemical reactions that happen slowly, like rusting. So if you have a car, you observe only one brown color, and then all of a sudden, all your upholstery are already corroded. Okay. So in this topic, in this chapter, we're going to discuss about the different chemical reaction. So we're going to know some terms or concepts that some of you may already heard them before. So that is not be, we could say, new to you. So for instance here, so what we have here is one way to test if you have an electrolyte or non-electrolyte. So the concept that we have here is electrolyte versus non-electrolyte. Or we could just say electrolyte, and then we could say strong, weak, and then non-electrolyte. So when we have an electrolyte, these are substances that dissolves in water to give ions. Okay? And usually this ion will serve as conductor of electricity. So whenever you have a substance, you dissolve it and they form into ions. So what does ion be? A cation or an anion. So those ions, they can conduct electricity. So the term that you use for them is electrolyte. Okay. So electrolyte is any substance that dissolves in water to give electrically conducting ions. So a strong electrolyte dissolves to produce ions. And these ions, as moving charges, they complete the circuit here. So that allows the bulb to light up. Okay, so if we're going to look at this in the real world, this is how we see we have a electrolyte. Now, what's the difference between the two? So one lights up the higher intensity compared to this one. So what does it mean? We can classify this as a strong electrolyte, while this one can be classified as weak electrolyte. So when we have a strong electrolyte, this is an electrolyte that exists in solution almost entirely as ions. So what does it mean? If you have NaCl, when you dissolve it in water, you form H plus and Cl minus. So there's 100% formation of ions. So your NaCl break down to form Na plus and Cl minus. So the definition that we can conclude on that is it is a strong electrolyte. Okay. Now there are some materials that don't dissociate 100%. So for instance, anyone wants to tell me what's the name of this chemical What is this chemical?
Vinegar.
Huh? That's your
Can't see.
Acetic acid.
acetic acid.
Acetate.
Okay, so it's from acetate and then the hydrogen. So we call it an acetic acid. Now, when you put acetic acid in water, not all of them will dissociate. To some extent, some of them will dissociate to give you this, but not all of them will dissociate. So what you have there is a weak electrolyte. Okay. Now, we can give specific example of strong electrolytes. So number one in the strong electrolyte are the soluble ionic compounds. So when you have an ionic compounds, most likely they will dissociate to give you ions. In addition to that, you have the strong acids and strong bases. So these strong acids, strong bases, they act like ions. When you put them in water, they dissociate. Although, as you could see, they're not metal or non-metal. Okay?
Well,
Strong bases, bases we could say is a metal and a polyatomic ion. But the acids usually, okay, if you have what? HCl, that's what non-metal. But if you're going to dissociate it in water, they form H plus and Cl minus. They act like ionic compounds.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, polyatomic ions will always be weak electrolytes when they dissolve?
The definition of electrolyte is as long as they form ions. Now, the thing that I'm trying to clarify you is when they will be strong and when they will be weak. Okay.
Thank you.
So if it's a strong, that means 100%. So if it's 100%, what does it mean? You have more ions that you have there. So if you conduct electricity, you could see the intensity is more intense or higher. But if you have a weak, only to a certain extent there will form into ions. So if you're going to look at the light intensity, it's not as intense as the strong electrolyte. Okay. Now we also have non-electrolyte. So what are non-electrolyte? They don't form into ions. So if you're going to put them, a solution of them, the light bulb will not light up. Example of this, let's say, is sugar. Sugar is a non-electrolyte. They don't conduct electricity because they don't form any ions. Okay? Now, in addition to this, what we call electrolyte, so we're going to go back on this. Okay? How do we know if it's soluble or insoluble?
If it dissolves in water, right?
So at this level, we have this qualitative definition of what is soluble and what is insoluble.
Would polarity like?
No. I mean, don't advance yourself yet to that level. Okay. You will going to get to that level if you pass Chem 111. So the way that we're going to look at this solubility that we have here is how are they going to react when you put them in water? Okay? It's not even a chemical reaction. It's just a dissolution. So what does it mean? If you put them in water, are they going to be soluble? Okay? Are all of them going to dissolve? So if all of them are going to dissolve, the term soluble is used. Compounds that are readily dissolved in water. Now, there are some instances that compound would dissolve very little, and we call them insoluble. Okay? So, if we're going to do at this level, usually, we could say that at a certain amount, okay, not all of the solid compound that we put dissolved. And maybe we can term that as insoluble. But if you're going to go to Chem 112, you will see that these insoluble compounds here in Chem 111, they are really soluble. The only difference is the amount that dissolved is so small. Okay, so if the soluble are in grams per ml, the insoluble one may be micrograms to milligrams per ml. So usually it's micrograms per ml. So we could say the amount that dissolved is so small. That's why when you add the same amount, okay, of different compounds, the one that dissolved in water, we call it soluble. The one that remained undissolved is insoluble. But if you're going to look at the insoluble substances, it dissolved, but the amount that dissolved is so little compared to the term that we have insoluble. Now, what dictates whether we're going to have a soluble or insoluble substance? We have the so-called solubility rules. Okay? So, these are the one that will tell us whether a given substance will dissolve in water or not. Okay? So, the way I do it is I just look at the one that is soluble, and if it's not included there, I can say it is insoluble. So first one, anything that has a group 1A and ammonium compounds, they are soluble. So what does it mean? If I have any of the element of group 1A and I can see it in a given compound, right away I can tell it will dissolve in water. So these are the cations. So what are in the group 1A? If I'm not mistaken, lithium, okay,
Sodium.
potassium, sodium. So anything that is in group 1A. And the other one that we have there is ammonium ions. If you're going to look at this, anything that will form this cation, if you find it in a given compound, 100%, you could say that compound will be soluble. Now, the second one, this pertains to anions. So anything that has this and this one, 100%, you could say that the compound that contains those polyatomic ions, they are soluble. Okay?
Why does it say most chlorides?
Huh?
How come the number 3 says most?
Yeah, we will go on that one by one. Okay? Now, the third one, so this pertains to the halides. So these are the group 7A. So chlorides, bromides, and iodides. Now, most of them are soluble except if they have silver, mercury, and lead ions. So here you're going to look at the exceptions. So if you have, let's say, sodium chloride, it is soluble. But if you have silver chloride, it is insoluble. Okay? If you have chromium chloride, is it soluble or not?
What chloride?
Chromium chloride, is it soluble or not?
Yeah.
It is soluble because it's not one of the exception. So usually you will see that these three elements, there are common exceptions when we go to the other polyatomic ions. Okay? So most chloride, bromides, and iodides are soluble except if you have silver, mercury, and lead ions. And then the next one, sulfates. So as you're going to look at the sulfates, they are all soluble except, again, the three that was mentioned in number 3. And what group is this? What group does this element belong to? Anyone?
Metalloid.
Calcium, strontium, barium, they are group
Transition metals.
Peroxide.
2A. Right? Look at the periodic table. So most sulfates are soluble except if you have a group 2A like calcium, strontium, and barium, and the silver, mercury, and lead sulfate. Okay? So we are already in the statements of all blank are soluble. So the next set of solubility rules that we have here is the other way around. So here, all are insoluble except, okay? So if you're going to look at here, the first one is the carbonate. Most carbonates are insoluble, exception, the group 1A and the ammonium ion. Now, you go back to rule number 1. All group 1A and ammonium ions are soluble. So you're going to apply this also with the phosphates. You're going to apply this also with the sulfides. So what are the carbonates? Okay, so this is wrong. It should be CO3, ammonium carbonates. Okay, now if we have the phosphates, so that means most of them are insoluble except if you have group 1A and the ammonium ion. Again, you go to group 1 rules or number 1 rule. And then the same thing with the sulfides. Most sulfides are insoluble except group 1A sulfides and ammonium sulfides. Again, you go to group 1 rule. Now, the last one that we have here, most hydroxides are insoluble. The exception, you have the group 1 and the group 2. Okay? So let's apply this rule now. Predict the solubility using the solubility rules of the following compound. Hg2Cl2.
Not soluble.
Insoluble.
Okay, so this is
Insoluble.
insoluble. So you know group 3, rule number 3, all chlorides are soluble except, and mercury is one of them. Okay, next, Ki.
Soluble.
Soluble.
So this is soluble. Okay, lead nitrate.
Insoluble.
Is it insoluble or soluble?
Insoluble.
Insoluble.
Lead.
Insoluble. Insoluble.
Again, lead nitrate. It is soluble, insoluble.
Insoluble.
Soluble.
Insoluble.
Insoluble.
Soluble.
My answer. Go back to the rule. This one.
Because it's a nitrate.
So everyone get the answer there?
Yes.
It is not insoluble, it is soluble. Okay, because it is a nitrate. This one,
Insoluble.
sodium bromide, it is soluble or insoluble?
Soluble because it's bromide.
So it's soluble because you have the group 1A. So usually for me, if I see the group 1A, I don't care what's the anion, it automatically it is soluble.
So if it was mercury nitrate, that would still be soluble?
It's still soluble because you have a nitrate there. Okay? Number 5. Calcium carbonate.
Insoluble.
Soluble.
Soluble.
Because of the
Carbonate.
no insoluble.
All I heard is soluble.
Insoluble.
Insoluble.
Yep.
Go back.
It's a group 2.
Carbonates there. Is calcium included? So most carbonates are insoluble. Exception is group 1A. So calcium is not group 1A. So it is insoluble. How about this one?
Soluble.
Soluble.
So this is soluble.
Beginning.
Okay. So are you ready for the poll survey?
Let's get into it.
No.
Okay, so I give you 1 minute. Fifteen seconds. So I'll give you additional 10 seconds. Okay. So let's see. Let's go one-on-one. So the first one, silver nitrate plus HCl. So what will be produced here? Silver chloride and nitric acid. Are there going to be any soluble or insoluble substance here? Any insoluble substance, yes or no?
No.
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 Isn't this insoluble?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the next one. We're going to go to the next one, and this is HCl and Na2CO3. So how are we going to do the reaction here? So we just exchange the positive and the negative and ion. So the H there will become H2CO3 and the other one will become NaCl. Now the question, is there going to be anything that will precipitate here?
Mm-hmm.
Will any of these species precipitate?
No.
No.
No. So there's no precipitate for that. Okay. Now the other one, NaOH plus K3PO4. So we swap again. So we end up with Na3PO4. And on the other one, we have KOH. Is there anything that will precipitate here?
What does precipitate mean?
Is there anything that's going to be insoluble?
Oh!
Product that formed.
I didn't know what precipitate meant.
Okay, precipitate is the product that formed.
So precipitate means to be insoluble or to
No.
be soluble?
Insoluble.
Insoluble.
Okay?
I don't know what that meant.
So I'm going to ask you to answer again your question. So maybe there's an improvement now.
To be insoluble, that's what it means.
So when you say precipitate, that means you have an insoluble substance that formed. Okay? So I'll go back to that later on as we go on. Because I might not be satisfied. I will ask you to do the thing again.
I didn't get to press anything.
I told you, we'll go back to that again because I'm still not satisfied with the answer. Okay? So let's look first at the chemical equation. So we say chemical equation is the representation of a chemical reaction. So in a chemical equation, we have the reactants and the products that we wrote. And usually we write it as molecular substances, even though they can exist as ions when you put them in solution or in water. And then in the chemical equation, you have there the state symbol, solid, liquid, gas, aqueous. Now, from the third chemical equation, we're going to make them now as molecular equation because what we do, we write them as molecules even though some of them are ionic compounds. Okay? So for example, this one. So what does this information tells us? So when we react silver nitrate with sodium chloride, so both of them are in solution form. So when you combine them, okay, you will see that there is a solid that form while the other one remains in solution. So this is what we call the precipitate. And what dictates that it will become a precipitate? Okay? The solubility rule will be the one to dictate that there will be an insoluble substance that you have. And that insoluble substance, that is your precipitate. Now, if you're going to look at the chemical reaction, have you seen a reaction between a solid and another solid? Have you experienced or have you seen firsthand a solid substance that reacts with a solid substance?
No.
No. Usually the reaction happens when you have a solid and you add it in a liquid one or an aqueous one. But most of the reaction that we could say are in aqueous solution. Okay, although you have not attended any lab, but there will be a reaction when you add, let's say, your barium chloride with your sodium sulfate. That's your experiment that you have in experiment four, the formation of barium sulfate.
So do we see the solubility when we see the product of the reaction?
What?
So do we like actually evaluate the solubility when we see the product?
You have to know the solubility rule because that's the only way for you to predict whether you're going to have a precipitate or not. Okay? That's why I'm telling you what dictates that this becomes the precipitate because of the solubility rules.
But wouldn't it be tricky like the last question that we had because it was silver nitrate? And
I'm not sure it's tricky because look, you have a silver nitrate here. All you need to do is how do you process? If you have a starting materials, what are the possible products? And we're on the way on doing that. Okay? So for instance, so this is the molecular equation. So you here all the species are written like a molecular substances, even though most of them are what? Ionic compounds. How do you know that they're going to be ionic compounds? Because the next type of equation is the complete ionic equation. So what does this mean? So this is the chemical equation wherein the strong electrolytes or the ionic compounds, you're going to write them as separate ions in the solution. Remember, you're doing the reaction in the solution. So if it's an ionic compound, they will dissociate as cations or anions. So in that case, what happened here? So this is a silver nitrate, so they will dissociate to give you silver plus and nitrate. NaCl, this is an ionic compound, so they will dissociate to give you Na plus and Cl minus. There should be a plus in between there. Okay? Now what will happen? The product that would form would be an exchange of the cation and the anion. The anion of the first compound will react with the cation of the second compound. The cation of the second compound will react with the anion of the first compound. And you're going to predict whether they will form a soluble or insoluble substance. So this is where the solubility rule comes in. So the one that is insoluble, that is the precipitate. So if you're going to look at this, this is the possible products that you have. And since we know all chlorides are soluble except silver, so we put their AgCl with S. That means solid. Now, the other one that will form would be like this one. And based on the solubility rule, they are not soluble. So they will remain in the solution. Did you get that?
Yes.
Yes.
Because here, we break down anything that can dissociate into ions. Okay? Now, if we're going to look at this, we can still simplify this reaction. Because we have this thing here. Sodium ion and nitrate ion. And we're going to look it on the other side. They also exist, right? So if you're going to look at them, they don't participate in the reaction because they remain the same at the beginning and at the end of the reaction. So they are just like watching there. So the term that they have, we call for them is the spectator ions. Okay? And if you're going to look at them, you can cancel them on both sides. Because they exist in the same form. Okay? So if we have these spectator ions, this is an ion in an ionic equation that does not take part in the reaction. So it appears both as a reactant and in the product side. And if we're going to remove them, we can simplify further the equation. Okay? We can call it now the net ionic equation. So if you're going to look at the net ionic equation, this is just showing you the reaction, okay, of species that participate in a given reaction. So here, if you're going to remove the spectator ions, what is left? That's the net ionic form. Okay? Now the question, can you do the same thing that we did with the reaction of silver nitrate with sodium chloride in the form of complete reaction or complete equation, molecular equation, and then the total ionic equation, and then the net ionic equation? So let's try to do this. So this is the one that you only include. So let's try to do this one. Will there be a reaction for this? So to try to predict what will be the product. I think you can write because somebody write the thing here. So you can write on the board. One of you write this yellow thing, but unfortunately, if you write it, they might be showing up to the other slide, like what happening to this yellow thing here. So what's the possible reaction here? So if you're going to break down, so this will be K plus, Br minus, and this will be Mg2 plus, SO4 2 minus. So what will be the combination? So this reacting with this, or this producing with that, and this one with that one. So you have K2SO4 and MgBr2. Okay, so if you're going to follow this thing, I'm just going to remove that one. So the question now is there any one of them that is going to be insoluble? Is this soluble or insoluble?
Soluble.
Soluble. How about this one?
Soluble.
It's also soluble. So in this case, both of them are soluble. So in this case, there will be no reaction. Why did I say there's no reaction?
Because nothing changed, so there's no net ionic equation.
Very good. Because when you add them, they will remain the same. Okay? So both of them are colorless solution. When you add them, they're both colorless solution because both of the product that's supposed to be formed are insoluble. So everything remains as ion. Okay? That's why there's no reaction. You only form a reaction if one of them form an insoluble substance. Let's try another one. How about this? Will there be a reaction? So these are the possible substances that you have there. So is any of this soluble or insoluble?
The Mg.
NaCl is soluble.
Okay.
That's
So the magnesium
insoluble. The
hydroxide
Mg,
is
that's insoluble.
So in this case, you're going to have
A
a
reaction.
reaction. Okay. So now let's try to look at the different reactions that we have here. So this is the original chemicals that we have. So when we react them, this is the one that forms. So you need to balance them. Okay. So as you could see here, there's an S. So that means it's a precipitation reaction. Now, let's try to do it in terms of the total ionic equation. So each of them can break down. This can break down to sodium ion and hydroxide ion. So each two of them. And then you have a magnesium ion and then a chloride ion, 2 chlorides ion. And then you have 2 sodium ion and 2 chloride ion. And then you have the magnesium hydroxide. Now, what are the spectator ions here?
NaCl.
Okay, so you have to put them in terms of the ions. So it is, that's the one coming from that species. This is the one coming from this species. Just to show you when we break it down. So if we're going to look at the spectator ions, we have sodium on both sides. So you may ask yourself, what are spectator ions? If you're given the equation, you see both of them on the reactant and the product side. So the sodium ion and the chloride ion are the spectator ions. And if you remove them, you have the net ionic equation. Okay? So question.
How come we don't say that fluoride is also an spectator ion?
Say it again.
How come we don't say that chloride is also a spectator ion if it's not in the net equation?
It is spectator ions here. Look, I cancel it out.
I didn't see that. Thank you.
And if you're going to look at the net ionic equation, you don't see them anymore because in the net ionic equation, it only includes the species that participate in the reaction.
I have a question.
Sure.
Does hydrogen fall under group 1A?
We have a special case on that.
Okay.
When we go to the acids.
All right. Got it.
Okay. Right now it's all precipitate reaction. So how about this one? So do we have a reaction here? Yes or no?
I think so.
Do we have a reaction here? So what could be the product here? So if we're going to what we could exchange them, you will end up with calcium phosphate. And KCl. So we could
Did
say
we already learn how to do proper exchanges? Because I am behind. Like I need to take, it takes me longer. Like to equal.
No, that is part of the naming that you have.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so how are we going to do it? The same thing that we did earlier. So these are the materials that we have. So as you're going to see, I need to balance them. So I'm not sure if this is 3. Because if you're going to look at this calcium phosphate and so Ca3PO4. So if we're going to look at this, I think this is a 2. Okay. So if that's a 2, that means this is a 6 here. And in the same time, the calcium that we have there is a 3. So 3 times 2, so this is a 6. So I could start it like this. So this is aqueous plus 3 calcium chloride. Okay, producing. So which one is the precipitate here?
Wait, so the equation wasn't balanced out. The given equation wasn't balanced out.
No, you have to do it. I mean, the one that is given is just the reactant.
Okay. So wouldn't calcium phosphate not be non-soluble?
So this is the S, and this one is the AQ. So now that you have them, you can now have an idea which one will dissociate or not. So you have here what? 6K plus, okay? That's aqueous plus 2 phosphate ion. And then for this one, you have 3 calcium 2 plus 6 chlorine ion. So I'm just going to put the product on this side. So this will remain like this. And the other one will be 6K plus and 6 chloride. So now here, this is now the total ionic equation. And from here, you'll be able to identify which is the spectator ions. And what's the spectator ions here?
CaCl.
Okay, the Cl and
Okay.
the K.
Okay.
And if you're going to remove them, you will see that this is your net ionic compound. The net ionic equation.
Professor, I have one more question.
Sure.
So for the exam, for like compounds like phosphate and carbonate and all of those, are we supposed to know the charges of them, or are we going to
Yeah,
be giving them?
that's part of chapter 2.
Okay, so we got to memorize all of the charges.
That's your polyatomic ion.
Okay.
So they are the common polyatomic ion that you have. Okay? So what we discussed so far is this precipitation reaction. So this is the types of chemical reaction that we have. So what we have discussed so far is the precipitation reaction. Wherein, okay, we have a solid ionic substance that forms from the mixture of two solutions of ionic substances. And what helped us predict the product or the precipitate? Solubility rules. That's the one that helped us predict whether a precipitate is formed. So when a precipitate is formed, you have an insoluble substance that forms. And since a precipitate is formed, you have a precipitation reaction. And then in this chapter, we're also going to learn about acid-base reaction and then redox reaction. Okay? So if we're going to wrap up the precipitate reaction, this is what we have. A precipitate is an insoluble solid compound formed during a chemical reaction in solution. So the way that we look at this, we did this already earlier, you predict the product. So you just exchange the cation and the anion of the given reactants. And then you determine the state of each product. So if all products are aqueous, there's no reaction. Now, if one of them precipitate, then there is a reaction. Okay? So, for the last time, I'm going to put the polls again. I'm giving you 1 minute. This time it's 1 minute because this is the third time that you get this. Think before you click. Okay. It get worse. I already have 44%. That is correct earlier. Anyone, what's the correct answer?
1 and 2.
Are you sure?
1 and 2.
The correct answer is only 1. 1 and 2, you're not going to form a precipitate. Okay?
Just 1.
So the answer here is only 1. Only 1 will form a precipitate. 1 and 2, you're not going to form a precipitate. You form a carbonic acid, which is soluble, and sodium chloride, which is also soluble. Okay? So let's go now with the acid base. So the definition of our acid-base reaction, if you're going to look at here, involves the transfer of proton. So we could say acid-base is just proton transfer. Okay. So
I have a question. Will this count against us? The poll?
What?
This poll, will it count against us?
Well, as I've told you, that's part of your quiz. You remember, you have a 5% attendance also. So that's one way also for me to determine if you participate. So you might be present, but if you don't participate in the quiz, you're not going to get the whole 5 points. You only get 4.
No, I know. She participates.
She means like if she gets it wrong.
I mean, if you get it wrong, it's fine. Because there are some people that don't even participate. Do you get it? Getting wrong is different from not participating at all. Did I make myself clear? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
Yes, I understand.
let's say you're 88. Now, whenever I do a poll survey question, only 80 participate. So what happened to the 8? Will I give them the same 5 points to those that participate? Okay. Getting the wrong answer will be counted as the quizzes. So all the answers here by the end will be tabulated and will be counted as one quiz. So this is a 2 points for me. One is for the attendance to see if you really participate, and the other one is a quiz. Because I know who are present, okay? I also know how long you are present. But the question is, are you also mentally present? Being present means logging in, but it doesn't mean that you are mentally present, because you can log in and then what? Go somewhere else or do something else. So all I need is for you to participate, because those who participate will get the full credit of 5 points. I mean, you have a 5% attendance, right? Compared to the one that's just logged in. Okay, so we go on. So proton transfer. So we define proton as the H plus. So if you recall chapter 2, okay, your H plus would only contain what? 1 proton. Usually it's like this. So that's the atomic number, and that's also the mass number. So it's just all proton. So acid and base, there are different definition of it. So the first one is by Arrhenius, a guy by name is Svante Arrhenius, a Swedish. So part of his dissertation, he proposed the definition of an acid and a base. So he proposed that acid is any substance that produces H plus when it dissolves in water, and a base is anything that produces OH minus when it dissolves in water. So the committee don't understand the concept that he's introduced. Okay, so they gave him a passing grade, but several years later he won the Nobel Prize, and his concept about the acids and bases is being discussed in most colleges around the world. So that's the contribution. Now the problem with the definition of Arrhenius, you limited the base to those only that contains hydroxide. You cannot include ammonia as a base or as an Arrhenius base because it doesn't have any hydroxide. So what happened? Years later, 2 scientists independently introduced the concept of acids and base, expanding the definition by Arrhenius. So you have here Johannes Brosted from Denmark and Thomas Lowry from England. So both of them define acid and base in terms of proton being a donor or acceptor. So the Bronsted-Lowry definition of acid is any species that donates a proton or a proton donor. Okay? And Any Bronsted-Lowry base is any species that serve as a proton acceptor. So here, they expanded the definition of the acid and base. And in this case, you can now include the ammonia. Because if you have ammonia, you react it with water. So what will happen? You're going to produce like this one and like this. So if you're going to look at here, so this serves as your acid because it gives up HH plus. This serves as your base because it accepts the H plus, as you're going to see here. This should be an OH minus, my fault. So since you lose the hydrogen here, the H2O becomes OH minus. Since the ammonia accepts the hydrogen, so it becomes the ammonium ion. But you're going to discuss most of the acids and bases in 112. So the basic concept that we have here is just the acid bases. So if you're going to look around us, these are the common acids and bases that you could see. And I would say anything that you eat, most likely it contains acid. What happened to you if you get too much food?
Yeah, heartburn.
You have hyperacidity, right? Okay. And I don't know if you experience it. Have you vomit as if nothing comes out, but if anything that comes out is so sour?
That's true.
Okay.
That's stomach acid though, right?
Yep. So you have the acid, specifically an HCl. And if you watch movie, when somebody tried to commit suicide by drinking nasty stuff, what happened to their mouth?
Necrosis. They foam at the mouth.
Sometimes like it's foaming, right? So if you're going to look at them, usually what happened there, the stomach acid that you have, or the gastric juice that you have, tried to push back outside anything that you drink. And in doing so, some of these gastric juices reacted with the skin in your mouth. So what happened there is there's really a reaction between the acid and the skin. Okay? So that's why there's foaming. Because the acid that you have there in your stomach, that's HCl. And the way that they determine what acid it is, let's say, a macabre episode. So someone got injured in the Wild Wild West. So he got a hole in the stomach. So the doctor who examined him said, I'm going to heal it, but I want to see first what the stomachs contain. So what he did is he tried to dissolve something every day to the stomach until he found out that it's made up of acid. So what do you usually do if you have hyperacidity? You take what?
Tums.
Tums, right? Or the so-called antacid. So usually all of the acids are what? Sour. Vinegar. What's the acid in the vinegar? Anyone? What's the acid in the vinegar? Hello?
Acetic acid.
Acetic acid. And then what's the acid in the fruit juices that you have? This one.
Citric.
Citric acid. Okay? And then for aspirin, that's also an acid.
What is lactic acid?
Lactic acid, that's what we call the one that you have in your body to
that's that one?
You. It's an acid.
Isn't that like the one that's in your muscles?
I thought that was cows.
I thought that was milk.
Yeah.
Okay? So as long as the name you have is acid, then that is an acid. Now for the base, most of them are, if you're going to taste it, they're bitter. And they're also slippery. And most of them are cleaning materials. Like the Windex, the Drano. Drano is just sodium hydroxide. Now, maalax, this is what we call like an antacid. So this is magnesium hydroxide. Now, one way to determine the acidity of a given material is to use an indicator. So usually this is just a dye that changes color depending on the acidity or basicity of the solution. So if you have phenolphthalein, it's usually what? When it's colorless, it is what? Acidic or basic? Compared to the one that it is pink. So if it's in acidic form, that's colorless. If it's in basic form, it is pink. Now, in the example that you have here, this is what? The cabbage. At different pH, they have different colors. This is due to the phytochemicals that they have called anthocyanins that can exhibit different colors at different pH. Okay? Now, we go now to the concept of strong and weak acid. So if you're going to look at the definition of a strength of the acid, it just pertains to ionization. So whenever we have a strong acid, this undergoes 100% ionization. So what does it mean? They behave like ionic substances. So when you put them in water, they will separate as ions, 100%.
Is that
So
how
we
you?
have
Is that why
here-
old milk separates because the acid in the milk?
Huh?
Yeah. I said, is that why old milk separates because the acid in the milk, or that might be something?
No, that's not having to do with this one.
Okay.
Okay? The strong acid that I mentioned here is when they dissociate into water, they separate as ion.
Oh, okay.
Okay? The one in the milk, they form other product. So it doesn't have anything to do with it. And if you're going to do the acid in the milk doesn't have any of this strong acid. So how do you know the strong acid? You memorize them. Usually there's 7. And the 7th one is HClO3. So what does this mean? They will completely dissociate like cation and anion. Now, all you need to do is know the 7 strong acid, and if it's not among the 7, you can consider that acid as weak. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So if it's not in the list of the strong acid, it is weak acid. So all you need to know is the 7 strong ones. I put the 7 one here. In some book, they include chloric acid. So nitric, sulfuric, chloric, perchloric, hydrochloric, hydrobromic, and hydroiodic acid. Okay? So anything that's not on the list, they dissociate as less than 100%. So weak acid is an acid that only partially ionized in water. And it is present primarily as the molecular form and partly as ion. So you call it the weak electrolyte. So if an acid is not strong, as I have mentioned in the list, then it is weak. So if we're going to look at how the strong acid and the weak acid at the ionic atomic level, let's try to look at this illustration. So what can you say about the figure A? So you have your HCl. So if you're going to put it there, okay, you will see all of them either this one or this one. Because what happened? HCl in water, they dissociate to give you H++ water, which becomes your H3O+ and Cl-. Because you might ask, where does the H3O plus came from? So that came from when you have an H plus that added with water. So as you could see there, do you see any HCl that remains?
Yes. No.
So as you can see here, it's either a chloride or a hydronium ion. Now compare it with B. Look what happened at the end. You still have this one, the HF. So it remains undissociated. It didn't ionize. So that means only a few. I think this one is the one that formed and this one. So only a part of a species dissociate. So that's a weak acid.
But HF would still be considered soluble, right?
No, this is not. All of them are soluble.
Oh, okay.
This is in terms of forming an ion or not.
Professor.
We are not already in the soluble or insoluble here. We're already here on the acids and the base. You get it? So we're talking about here whether they would form 100% ions or only a part of them will ionize. So HF remains HF. So that means it's a weak acid. Okay? Now, on the other part, we have this. How do we define strong base and weak acid? The same thing as the acid. The strong one dissociate 100%. The weak one, they don't dissociate 100%. So the only difference now is we're talking about base. And it's also easy to remember them. All the common strong bases are the hydroxides of group 1A and 2A. So if it's not any of them, then they're not strong base. So usually the strong base, they behave like ionic compound. And because they're ionic compound in the first place, unlike the acid. So weak acid, if you're going to look at it, only a portion of them ionize. The way that you're going to learn it in Gen Chem 2, okay? If you have a strong acid or strong base, the reaction is, like the name of the band, one direction. If you have a weak acid and a weak base, then it will be a double-sided arrow. So that means here, the reaction is just one direction from the reactant to the product. But for the weak acid and the weak base, you have a system at equilibrium because only partial points or partial amount will dissociate. So let's try this one. We'll just finish the acids and base part today. So how are you going to classify KOH?
Strong base.
Strong base.
Strong base.
Strong base. H2S.
Strong acid.
So this is an acid. So what acid? Strong or weak?
Weak.
Weak.
Weak. Methylamine. This is a base.
Weak
Because
base.
it
Weak
derives
base.
from ammonia.
Weak.
So this is a weak base. Perchloric acid.
Strong
Strong
acid.
Acid.
I mean, strong acid.
It's a
Jesus.
strong acid. So you're going to have questions like that in your second exam. Okay? So we go further. We just finished the acid-base part. So there are acids that can give up more than one hydrogen. And we call them the polyprotic acids. We can call them the diprotic acid when they give you 2 hydrogen, or a triprotic when they give you 3 hydrogen, like phosphoric acid. Okay? And if you have a reaction where there is an acid that react with base to produce a salt and water, the term that they use on that is neutralization reaction. Okay? Now, the thing that we're going to do is, what if we apply in an acid-base reaction the one that we did earlier in the precipitation reaction? So we apply the molecular, the total ionic, and the net ionic equation. So how are we going to write them? Like this one here. So how are we going to write the reaction here? So just like before, so the neutralization of sulfurous acid by potassium hydroxide. So definitely we could say there is a reaction here. So the question is, what could be the reaction here? So if we follow the neutralization reaction definition, so that means you have a salt and water. So it's a given that you have a water as one of the products. So what will the salt look like? Anyone? So what did I do? How did the water form? I get the hydrogen there and add it with an ion here. So the other one will be K2.
SO3.
SO3. So it's still the same concept that we have earlier. It's just like an exchange, but the exchange that they have here, the one of the cation is an H+, which is your acid. Now, here, you have to ask yourself, what are these species? Are they molecular or ionic one? Because the next thing that you're going to do, anything that you can ionize, you ionize. Anything that is an acid remains an acid, or anything that is molecular remains molecular. So I would say this remains as this. Because this is not an ionic compound. Okay, this is an acid. How about KOH? Can you dissociate KOH? Is KOH an ionic substance?
Yes.
Yes.
So you can dissociate them. And before we continue, I think we need to balance the reaction, right? So how do I put the balancing here? Do I put a 2 here and 2 here? Anything else? Is it balanced now?
Yes.
What about water?
Yeah, the water is the one that you have there.
Okay.
It's okay. Okay. So try to see. Can you ask Kuya about that? Matthew, Megan, ask Kuya. Tell Kuya. Okay. So try to do it. I just try to.
Oh. Head out. I'm kind of confused.
I'm lost.
What are we supposed to be doing?
So what's the product that we have here?
How do we do we add the, no, that doesn't make sense. Never mind. I'm trying to, I don't 110% understand.
What?
So I know we're supposed to be neutralizing it, but I'm just confused how we're gonna split it up.
No, the one that you're going to split up is, ask yourself, is it an ionic compound? That's the only one that you can split into ions.
So we leave
Water, you
everything
cannot
else
split it
alone.
out. Can you split this?
What is this? Hold on.
Potassium sulfate, can you split that one?
Yes.
Yes. So you might ask yourself, how can we split it? Go back to chapter 2. How do we define the ionic compound? It is a positive and a negative charge, right?
Yes.
So it's made up of a metal and a non-metal.
And then we just split it up. Well, what's the work of putting it all together if we're gonna just have to split it up again?
No, we're not going to put them together because we try to determine what is the net ionic equation.
Oh, the total.
So what do we have here now? We have spectator ions. So what do we do with the spectator ions?
Cross them out.
Okay, so we're not going to bring them up together because we're trying to see what's the net ionic equation. So the net ionic equation that we have is you have an acid here reacting with the base to give you water and
SO3, that is
this one.
Yep.
I don't know why.
Someone scribbled.
So try to analyze.
Professor,
Yep.
can you upload this slide on Blackboard after today? Because like I understand it, but I like to review it.
It's there in the all the slides are in the Blackboard.
No, like this lecture.
Yeah, I will. Oh, by the way, they said there's a time frame for the recordings. I think after 15 days they go away.
Okay.
That's why you should what we call study after our session, after every session as much as possible. Okay? So this is now your net equation.
It's hard to tell, you don't know.
So you started everything like molecules, and then you break down anything that can dissociate or ionize if you have an ionic compound. So for this case, you have the KOH and the K2SO3. And then during that time, you identify if there's a spectator ions. So spectator ions, these are ions that are present on both sides. So in this case, it's just K plus.
And this
And
is
then you
what you
end
do
up with
for,
what is left.
and this is how you find the net ionic to find the
Net ionic
spectating,
equation.
to find the spectating, eliminate them, and then rewrite it.
Okay?
Okay.
So the last special reaction of an acid base is the one that has the so-called gas formation. So if you have a vinegar reacting with the baking soda, you have the classic volcanic eruption because you produce CO2 as one of the products. So if you're going to look at this specific acid-base reaction with the formation of gas, so usually that's the one that contains the sulfide, the carbonate, and the sulfide. So if you're going to look at this, when they exchange, what happened? Okay, so you form gases. So if you're going to look at this, the exchange between the carbonate, sodium carbonate and HCl is really like this one. But what happened? You can break it. So you form water and carbon dioxide. So if you're going to add this with this one, they are going to give you the same number of elements. The same thing with this one. So this comes from H2SO3. So they form into gas. So this is some of the reactions that they have. So anything that contains sulfides, carbonates, and sulfides, okay, they will give you some gases. So question. Maybe we'll start this one next time. So question. Before I end up the lecture and then maybe have some open session. You always end up this lecture with this one. Okay.
I have a question about the exam.
Okay.
Are we gonna have like an unlimited amount of time to do it, or is there gonna be a certain amount, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
You will be given, if I'm not mistaken, 90 minutes to answer that. And you will have a time frame from 12 to 2.
Okay, are they multiple choice or they're open-ended?
It's a multiple choice and calculation. So there will be, I would suggest do the dry run that I'm going to post later today. The question will be similar to that. There's a multiple choice and there is a calculated answer.
Okay, thank you.
So if we do your
if you did chapter 3, you have an idea now how the exam will look like. Because I think the chapter 3 quiz, they have questions on calculation. How many questions as of now? I counted is around 25, but I'm still trying to modify it.
So if we do your review and the other thing that you're about to post will be fine, essentially.
If you do the review, if you do everything, if you understand everything, you have no problem in the exam. That's why I would suggest you start as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So
I would say don't have a happy weekend this weekend. Because if you're going to do everything by the last week, I can assure you, okay, you will fall to the dark side. As Joda said, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Okay? So what's your fear now? Failing the course. So as much as possible, you have to do everything on your part. Now, for me, I don't know if the exam is easy or difficult, but I usually adjust depending on the performance. I would just have a mindset that it's difficult. Because if it's easy, you might be confident and the bad thing would happen. So I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Professor, is there any way you could get to your email? Because I had emailed you about